Hello everyone, Mark from Overlanding Forward. Welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to walk you through all of the planning stages that I put in place for a 9-day epic Pyrenees overland adventure. Let's get into it. So I'm heading off in a couple of weeks with James from Dadulthood, link in the description to his channel. James has Frank, his L322, it's a 4.2 supercharged. We had decided probably about 2 months ago to go do the Pyrenees. It's something James has always wanted to do, and we found the time to do it. Now the problem with going at this time of the year, it's now coming up towards the end of July, is the only time we could really get off was going to be the first couple of weeks of August. We're right in the height of summer holidays, the big getaway, and the heat. So between the two of us, we managed to figure out we can go from August the 5th, coming back the following Thursday, which I believe is the 14th. Now with that in mind, we had to look at how do we get the maximum amount of time off-road as we can within the time frame we've got. Now normally, those of you that have got my book, A Beginner's Guide to Overlanding the Iberian Peninsula, I recommend taking the ferry from Portsmouth and going into Santander or Bilbao. Now that's great if you've got a little bit more time, but in this example, because we've only really got 8 or 9 days to play with, we've decided that what we're going to have to do is take the overnight ferry from Portsmouth to Cannes and then drive down through France. It's not ideal, but between the two of us, we believe we can get that done. And again, most of the ferries were already booked up anyway, way before we'd planned on doing this. So we pretty much don't have much choice to be able to go do this. But what I wanted to do is to walk you through how I went and planned this trip out to maximize the off-roading that we can do in the time frame we've got from when we get down to the end of France into Spain, and then do the Pyrenees and get as much diverse landscape as we possibly could rammed into basically 8 days. I've known James for a couple of months. He's followed the channel for a few years. Frank, the L322, he tried back in, I think it was February, to go to the Nordkap, all the way up at the top of Scandinavia. Frank wasn't compliant. We also went to Strata, Florida. We'd planned on doing it, so Richie Crossley, myself and James planned on doing Strata, Florida, more as a test run. Unfortunately, Frank didn't like going into low range on the transfer box. More importantly, he wouldn't come out of low range to high range. So he ended up on the back of another flatbed. We cancelled that trip. So Frank is now back. And so now what we've decided to do, we were always planning on doing the Pyrenees. We're going to go for it. So within those 9 days, I had to look at this of, right, what can I do to, one, get James used to driving those types of conditions, because let's face it, Spain, 40-degree temperature, dusty tracks, not used to doing it here in the UK. Now I've got enough experience doing it, which is why I wrote the book. So we've got to try and get him warmed up to this. So the first thing I'm going to do is the Portsmouth ferry overnight to Cannes. It's about 4 to 6 hours. It really depends on how Google maps it out. But you arrive early in the morning, disembark around 7 o'clock. It's not a big port, it's not a big ferry. You're normally out of there within half an hour and then you're on the road. So we plan on day one, when we get into France, is basically hitting in as much of that as we possibly can. It's about 512 miles from Cannes all the way down to Hendaye. Now Hendaye has got a lot of campsites right onto the Atlantic coast. So we feel quite comfortable that if we can do that first stretch, which will be, I'm guessing, somewhere in the region about 8 hours drive, we can then dump ourselves into a campsite. We can relax, we can chill, we can stock up on food, we can go refuel up as well, ready for day 2. Now day 2 for us will really be the first day that we will attempt to do any type of off-road. So the plan is that we're going to drive from Hendaye, go into Spain and get to Car Castillo, which is a little bit south of Pamplona. Car Castillo is the gateway to Bardenes Realis. We're approaching Bardenes Realis from the north. It's probably the best way to approach it. If you go from the south, you don't really see a lot of the diverse landscape that you see if you go from the north. So you've probably got about 10 kilometers of trail from the northern entrance to get down to where the big loop is. So we're coming in from the north. We're not going to do the big 25-kilometer loop. To be honest, it's quite boring and it's the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in, hang a right, do some of the loop and go to where all of the quote tourist sites are. So you see these, and I'll put a picture up here of where you can see, I'm not sure what they're called. There's just a lot of limestone eroded rock. And the one that everybody goes to, where they take their pictures, have their pictures taken, where all the tourist bus goes, gets very, very crowded in that car park. So we're going to head there, do the normal tourist thing, get some pictures to take, and then come back out and then follow the route all the way back up the way we came to get back onto the road. So that will probably take us about 2 hours. It's what I would consider fast gravel tracks, meaning you could probably do 25 mile an hour comfortably. What you end up seeing is you end up with a lot of rocks and gravel tinging underneath the bottom of your of the bodywork. So it does kick up a lot of gravel, it kicks up a lot of rocks. And at that time of the year with the heat's been on it, it's going to be massively dusty. So I think that's a really good way of sort of getting your eye in and driving in that sort of terrain, that sort of heat. When we leave Bardenas Realis, we're going to head to Leanya. And Leanya has one of these unique Roman pump rooms which has been restored. It also has all the original columns where the aqueduct fed all the water to the pump room. Now, a lot of people go to the pump room, but not a lot of people go down to where the pillars are still there in the fields. The track is quite rocky. Most people in most cars could get down there, and it's probably half a mile, and most people don't walk. So we're going to see that. It's quite unique in the middle of the Spanish plains, farmland, and then you've got these posts. There's probably about 20 of them still standing. So we're going to head there and then work our way right across the plains. It's dusty. It's relatively fast. We're talking 25, 30 mile an hour, that sort of range, all the way through the trails that give the farmers access to all of their land. So we'll end up going through small towns such as Biota, and the last one is Faraduez. But they generally get from Leanya to Biota is quite simple. From Biota to Faraduez, you get a little bit more elevation change. You see more washouts. Some of that track, you can't do those sorts of speeds because you go up in elevation, you end up with all the washouts. It gets somewhat technical. So the speeds will go down on that second piece. And then the third piece, which will be Faraduez to Luna. Now, this is one of my favorite trails. It's not difficult, but it's one of these places where you can actually start seeing the diversity of landscape. The views are incredible when you go up into the higher elevations. So we plan to get right up on the ridgeline. There are 2 wild camping spots that I've stayed in before, which will actually give you some relief from the heat if it's warm, because you're up in elevation, you get a more breeze up there. But the views up there are spectacular. So that is our plan for day 1. Now, a couple of things to sort of point out. That is a long day's driving. When a lot of people start doing this, there are 2 things that they don't realize. 1, they overestimate the distance they can cover. And 2, they underestimate the time it takes to cover the distance. So I'm cognizant of the fact that James has not done this, and we are facing, from the Spanish border to Carcastillo is going to be an hour and a half. That is probably start to finish 7 to 8 hours. That's a long time in heat. It's a long time in dust. It'll be a great trail, and it'll be a really good way for us to sort of get ourselves used to driving off-road again. So that's day 1. So day 2, we plan on doing a trip north from Luna to Agüero. That is all off-road, and Agüero is part of what they call the Mallos, M-A-L-L-O-S. And those are big red rocks where the village is below the rocks. There's a whole bunch of them in that area. There's rock climbing that people go on. But it's a really brilliant entrance to Agüero when you turn around the corner. The trails aren't difficult. They're all graded, actually. They're the major roads that get people in and out of Agüero. But they do a lot of elevation. They go through some water drops. It's an interesting trail. But as you turn the corner and you see Agüero nestled underneath the Mallos, it's just spectacular. You also get vultures flying high up, and they nest up above Agüero. Then we can get back on the road, and we're going to head to Huesca, which is not far. It's probably about 45-minute drive. And there we can stock up on food, water, supplies, refuel, which based on both vehicles and our miles per gallon, we're probably going to need it. But that gives us ability to just top up, do a reset, and then in the afternoon probably we are going to head down to a place called Valfarta. Yeah, I know. So from Huesca to Senna, it's about a 45-minute drive on tarmac, and then you hang a right. And you go way up in elevation very, very quickly. You go through all of the washouts and everything and the diversity of the landscape to get on top of a ridgeline. And that ridgeline is part of the Monograss Desert. So we're going to work our way south down to Valfarta. It's probably 2 hours. It's going to be dusty. It's going to be overgrown because not a lot of people do it. But we will end up in a campsite in Valfarta. And what that will allow us to do again, decompress, chill out, and then get prepared for day 3, which for us will be Valfarta, up through the Monograss Desert to Barbasto, and then on to Boltana. That is probably about 100 miles, of which of that, 80% of that is going to be off-road. So our plan is to get to Boltana, and Boltana is on a river. A lot of that is fed directly from the mountains of the Pyrenees that sort of feed into that river, and there's lakes, there's man-made lakes around there. But in Boltana, there's a number of campsites that are on the river. The best one is a campsite called Camping Boltana, and ideally we want to try and get in there. So if we can get in there around about 4 o'clock when they open after siesta, we should be able to get a pitch for the 2 of us. That time of the year, a lot of the Spanish go north to get away from the heat at places like Barcelona and Madrid. There's a lot of caravans there in the park, but it is by far one of the best camping facilities that I have ever stayed at. It's spectacular, and it's so clean. They clean that thing 4 or 5 times a day. It is spotless, literally spotless. So if you get the chance, Camping Boltana, highly recommend it. So from Boltana, this will be day 4. We will then do Boltana to Isabina. And out of all of the tracks that I've picked for this is by far going to be the most difficult. So Boltana to Isabina, again, it's about 100 miles, but almost 90% of that is off-road. And you go up in some fairly steep ascents to get to the top. It's not well traveled. It's rocky in places. It's quite technical in places. There's a lot of washouts on the descent where water runs down and will take rocks and everything with it. So this really does test man and vehicle because you're up with heat. So you have heat to contend with. It's going to be hot, but you've also got slow going technical driving. And I think by the time we get there 3 or 4 days in, that will be a really good way of being able to, 1, test the vehicles out, and 2, test out the different type of off-roading or different type of overlanding. So Boltana to Isabina, 90% of that, all off-road, brilliant trails, high elevations. There's very, very few people that go on them. Every now and again you might find a motorbike or a dirt bike, but generally it's quiet, which is great. The only real piece in the middle is when you get to the end of part 1, there's an old bridge that is no longer used. It's quite old. There's a new one there. But then you get on a piece of tarmac that goes for about a mile down the road before you hang another right, and then you go back up again. And eventually you end up in Isabina, about 2 miles away from the campsite. So the campsite Isabina, Camping Isabina, is a BMW dirt bike center, I believe. Many times I've stayed there, full of Germans on dirt bikes and touring bikes. It's a huge campsite. A lot of shade, but there's also parts of the campsite where it is open. Now I got an awning, which is okay. We can be able to get the 2 vehicles together and give us enough shade and protection if it's still hot, if the sun's still out, which it obviously will be at that time of the year. Trying to figure out where we are now. Day 4 or 5. What we want to then do is basically go from Isabina to Sort. If you've been watching Ben's garage, you know back in June Ben went and did the Pyrenees, and in his L322 with his father and his brother. Shortly before he went, Ben wrote to me and said, hey, what do you recommend? So I said to Ben, the best thing to do is find a campsite and Sort. I gave him recommended one, and use that as a base camp to go do out and back loops. And we plan on doing exactly the same thing. All of the campsites in either Salt or Riap are right on the river. I'll put a description down here of the name of the river. I don't want to bastardize the Spanish. This time of the year, July, August, it's not running as fast. I've been there in May and it's been it's just been torrents of water. They do white river rafting in there, kayaking, those types of things down that river. But at that time of the year, with all the snow and melt gone, chances are it'll be quite slow. You can actually get in the river on a deck chair and just cool down, which is great. So we plan to go there. Salt is a really good way of just sort of decompressing. There's great restaurants, pizzerias, tapas, all that stuff. So either Salt or Riap, two places I'd recommend you go. There's plenty of campsites. I doubt very much we'll have any problems jumping into either one of those and just rocking up. So Salt will be our base for about the next 3 days, and what we plan on doing is doing out and back loops. While I don't have all of them planned, I've got a whole stack of those ready to go. One of those will be doing the Smuggler's Trail. Now, I've done that 3 times in different directions on different trails. There's not just one, there's many different ways to do it. One of them is really difficult, and because we've got a long distance to drive home, I'm not going to attempt that one. The more moderate one is the one that we will attempt, which is the further up. So if you take from where Salt is, there's 3. The further one up, it's about 20 miles, I think, to get to the entrance of it. We will be doing that one. So we will go right the way up the top of Smuggler's Route, over the border into Andorra, and then turn around and come back. And we've got others, as I said, we've got other trips that we're going to do out and back. So you can do loops from Salt to places like Espot. You can go up into the higher mountains. There's a lot of satellite navigation high up, ski resorts high up. So we will pick a couple of those if we want to do that, or if we want a chill day, we've got a chill day. At the end of that, when we're finished, which will probably be day 8 for us, or day 9, probably day 8, we are then going to head over the Pyrenees and go to Limoges. We're going to hang out with Ben for an evening. He's great at making pizza. Whether we record a video, I'm not sure. I'll find out what Ben wants to do. And then the following day, we go from Limoges back to Cannes, and then we're back home. So that is the entire trip. There's a lot of driving involved. I've worked out just the off-roading is about 750 miles. And clearly we've got to do the 500 miles down and the 500 miles back. So we're probably looking all done, I'm guessing about 2,500 miles by the time we're finished, start to finish. So I've helped many people recently, help them build trips. What I normally say to them is, well, they come to me and say, can you help me? And the answer is yes. So what I need to know is vehicle type, how many people, how long you got. So a lot of people have got 2 weeks. I'm working on a trail and a trip for a family that are in a Discovery 4 from Holland. They're basically going from the Mediterranean, starting in Calor, going right the way across the Pyrenees to end up in San Sebastian. And that one is going to take about 14 days for them. That is not including getting to where they need to start and going home. That's up to them to figure out how they get that. So I'm working on that. I've also done a couple of other planning sessions for 2 fathers and sons who are doing this on their own. They're going solo. And I've got another one that I think I'm going to have to work on as well. The most important thing is, as I mentioned before, is to make sure you don't overestimate how long you're going to be staring at that windscreen, and don't underestimate the time. So anytime anybody says, well, we're trying to think that we can do X amount of distance or X amount of time, I just tell them you need to double it at least, because you're just not doing the sorts of speeds that we used to if you're driving on tarmac. It's just a fact. So anybody that is interested in me helping them build a trip, I'm more than happy to do it. I know more than the Iberian Peninsula. I pretty much know most of the trails in Portugal by now, and I'm off to do Sicily and Sardinia in September and October, and I have another book coming out which is all about off-roading both of those 2 islands. So I know more about off-roading in the southern countries, and I've got a lot of experience on doing that. So what tools did I use and do I use generally? So the 2 for me are quite simple. It's Gaia GPS and Wikiloc. Now Wikiloc I have a love-hate relationship with. The problem with Wikiloc is there are a lot of people that will put their routes up with no descriptions, no waypoints, their difficulty rating is sometimes completely out, meaning they think it was easy when in fact it could be moderate. So when I've gone and looked at these trails, when I've looked at what other people have done, the first thing I do in Wikilocs is how many more trails have they posted? Are there descriptions there? Are there waypoints, and are there photos? If there isn't, I ignore them. I just don't go anywhere near them because I just don't think people have taken the time and effort to describe the trips. I've probably got about 300 different trails that I've collected down the years from either following other people, using those trails and testing them out myself. So I'm quite confident and know my way around Wikiloc to be able to do that. So I always look for the quality of the posts that somebody put up on Wikiloc. If they took the time to put detailed descriptions and rated it correctly, which you can assume they did, you can also generally see the car that they're driving. Then you generally know if they're in a Nissan or they're in a Jeep and I'm in a Range Rover or I'm in a Land Rover, then you pretty much know you're okay. If they're in a van or if they're in something with a fairly low ground clearance, that's up to you what you want to do. So Wikilocs is always my first port of call if I'm planning something like this. Now, as I said, I've got so many trails, I don't generally need to go to Wikilocs unless I'm looking for something really specific in a region or an area I've never been before. And that's just me doing research. I take those GPX files and I load them into Gaia GPS. So now I've got a visual representation of all the files I've got in a certain area in Gaia. And with Gaia, you can either make them visible or you can hide them on the map. So when they go in, I basically hide everything else, just look at that one single route, and then I begin to be able to paste them together. And once I've pasted them together, you can do it in different colors. What I can then do is I can start very, very careful with a pencil, an Apple Pencil, and start mapping my route. And the great thing about Gaia is you can start and overlay existing colored routes that you've got and just point to where it goes, and it will automatically like sync into the tracks. It will paint it as you go. So you can build your own trails, save them out as a GPX file for the whole thing, which is what I've done for this trail. It does take a little time to do. It probably takes about an hour to build a whole end-to-end trail, but that is really up to anybody else how they want to use it. Now, the great thing about Gaia is you can start really honing in on the terrain. If you know what contours are on a map, that's how I find wild camping spaces. I can get a general idea of what it looks like. You can put satellite layers on. You can build that up so it looks really, really good. And that's how I managed to pick where I think that is a good place to stop or a potential wild camping spot. So that's what I do to be able to find all of that. A couple of tips for you. If you go do this, recommend before you even leave the house, download all of the maps onto your device. Do not rely on doing it when you get to where you need to go. Do not rely on mobile service. It's patchy in places, and the higher elevations you go, the less you're going to have it. So the last thing you need to do is get on a trail without the map or relying on mobile service, and then all of a sudden everything stops. And then if there is a route that goes a certain way and you can't follow it, you're guessing. Now what I do is I take all my GPX files and then I load it down to my Garmin tread. So I have that as a backup, but I generally follow the tread. And the great thing with the tread is all of my routes are on my tread. So if I'm driving along a trail that I want to go, I can see whether it intersects with another track that I've got already downloaded, and I can open it up, look at it. You can also then go into Gaia. So Gaia sits on my big iPad. Generally, I don't open Gaia while I'm driving or have it with me because everything is on my tread. So that's where most of the trails come. If you go to overlanding4wd.co.uk, I have packs of trails that I've built either using my trails, copies of other ones, into a pack that you can put those together. And then I've got a 3 to 7 day, this one that I've built now is available for you to go download as well. I will put a PDF in it, which gives you descriptions and shows you where you potentially could walk in. So that's how we're shaping up. We've got a combination of gravel, dusty trails, we've got technical challenges, a long day of technical challenges, which I love that track. Wonderful scenery, high up, brilliant scenery, and a real blend of different types of planning and flexibility built into doing this to be able to get it done in the time that we have. And that's part of the challenge, and that's part of what I enjoy doing. I've got a set time frame. I need to pack out that time frame as best as possible, that we not end up at the end of the day like Ronnie Dahl, we end up at roll up and camp at night. Not for me. Just so you know, my philosophy on this is quite simple, is I don't like driving off-road anytime after 5 o'clock. I want to be hunting for somewhere to stop around 4:35. And in the mornings, roughly 9:30, 10, I want to be moving. So it gives you enough time to decompress, take a bit of a relaxing view of it. I am not into covering thousands of miles in a day. I'm sorry, I'm just not. It's not achievable, and you end up getting too burnt out too quickly. So I generally look at it that way. Find somewhere 5 or 6-ish, whatever, especially if it's campsite. Sometimes campsites open up around 4 o'clock. If it's busy, which it will be at this time of the year, we need to make sure that we are close to getting into a campsite. If not, all those spots could be taken up, which is sort of okay because we can probably go find somewhere to wild camp. But ideally, at the end of the day, although I've got shower facilities, it's always good to be in a safer environment. Although wild camping is not, but then we can go take showers. There's a restaurant there if you want to go get some food, all of that stuff. So I totally understand. So if you're planning something similar and you need help, overlanding4wd.co.uk, I can help you plan all this out. If you want to have a chat and just shoot the breeze about what you're planning on doing, I'm more than happy to do it. There's plenty of different consulting packages, from doing an hour to building full-blown adventure holidays for you, which I do and I love doing for people. I've done 5 of them now. I've done all different types of trips for people. So if that is something you want help with, I'm more than happy to do it. One thing I do, if you go to Spain or Portugal and you use me, you get a free copy of my book. And you also get all the maps and everything as well, which you would have to pay for on the website. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the bell notification so when James and I drop both of our videos, you'll be the first ones to see them. And with that, I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.